Hello YouTube, and welcome to the first video on the Worm and Garden channel. This is my first video on this bin. This is an Eisenia hortensis bin, also known as the European nightcrawler. This is not the standard red wiggler bin. The Eisenia hortensis is a cousin to the Eisenia finata, but the red wigglers are much smaller than the European nightcrawlers. I made this bin about 2.5 weeks ago. You can see we have a bunch of soil. That's not castings. That's actually Scott's topsoil. The reason why I put it in the worm bin as bedding was because it was just full of anaerobic activity. When I got it, it just smelled horrible. So I thought I'd let the worms munch on that. That was my primary food source at the beginning. But then I've been feeding it kitchen scraps. I also mixed in some pine shavings from Tractor Supply, the Queen horse pellets. And that's kind of like a core additive, but it's made from pine, and they compress these into pellets that are used for horse stalls. Let's go ahead and take a look at the layers here. You can see we have 3 different layers. We have this layer, which I think is where the worms are currently hanging out in. We also have this bottom layer. I was hoping that more of this would be processed, but I think the color is from, I put a lot of wild bird seed here, but it looks like over here in this corner that the worms are coming down here. I was hoping that the Eisenia hortensis would hang out more at the bottom, but it could also be that the leachate pipe is just a little bit higher than the bottom level, so there could be some water there, and maybe the worms don't want to go down in that level. But you see, we got a lot of sprouts, and we're probably going to trim those and bury those in one corner of the bin. We will be feeding this. I have a few banana peels and show you how to go ahead and feed the bin. Let's also take a look here. This is where I fed about 3 days ago. You can see there's a lot of worms there. They are just, pigging out, having a buffet on that. That was an apple and bread slushy that I made. Now about the newspaper, this newspaper on the top I leave dry just so that the worms don't crawl out. You can see I don't have a lid on this bin. I do have a lid here, but I don't use it anymore because when I had the lid, humidity would build up in the top layer of the bin, and the worms would try to escape, or they try to come out of the soil. So I try to leave it open. Well, actually I leave it open 24/7. I don't have any worms escaping. When I first got it, I had 3 or 4 worms a day escaping, but now I don't have any. The dry newspaper keeps the worms inside, so when they hit this dry newspaper, they don't have a desire to go up any further. So I just pulled up the dry newspaper, and this is the wet newspaper underneath. You can see if I peel back this newspaper layer that we'll see the soil interface. This is where I fed last week. I also fed down here. So there's food on both sides of the bin. Currently I'm feeding both sides. When I want to harvest a little bit of this out, I'm going to only feed one side, because up here you can do that. But this newspaper here is very dry, and the sprouts are dying, which is, there's no light in here, so they obviously would die. Okay, with regards to feeding, I've been feeding in corners. You see I have some newspaper, and I also have some paper towels down there. I do have, fruits and veggies buried underneath that, but I've mainly been feeding in these 2 locations. So I'm going to dig a hole here in this corner where I'm going to dig the food that I'm going to put in today. But I think that that'll probably be good for 2 or 3 weeks of food, just so that I'll give the worms plenty of time to eat the food scraps, and also to start working on this, because it looks like this won't last much longer. So this is going to decompose on the top layer. So I've been digging here in this layer here. In this corner you can see I have some worms that were in this area, but I don't really see a lot of them. Okay, there's one that goes. That is an Eisenia hortensis worm. See, there's another one. So I've disturbed their habitat. But hopefully I can get more worms here in this corner. Primarily there's just newspaper. They didn't really seem too interested in that. But there goes another worm over there. And there's a worm making an escape there. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you what we got working here. We have some old, very old mashed potatoes. We have 2 banana peels. We have a potato here. 2 banana peels that have been decomposing. I'm just gonna drop this in there the way it is. I think that'll be fine. I'm gonna put the bananas and the potatoes in the processor to make a worm smoothie. There, let me see if you can see that. So let's just go ahead, take some of this out, and get this crunching. This banana's 2 days old. I'll drop that in there. This potato I have in here has been in there for approximately 3 or 4 weeks. So it's prime. It was a baked potato, so it's a little bit softer to cut. I'd also put a little water in there just to make sure that it gets blended up just fine, but you don't really need a lot, just a little bit will do. We still have a second banana peel, but I'm going to go add this to the bin. And you can see that just looks prime, delicious. Yeah, you probably can't see yet. Come take a look what we got here. You see, oh yeah, it looks just great. So I'm just going to dump this here in this hole to encourage worms to come over on the side of the bin. You see, there it is, all that junk. This is take 2 on the worm smoothie. So that's the second one. This is just banana and a little apple. Then whenever I add stuff, I always like to just wash it down with a little water. Just if there's any worms down there, it'll kind of bring the scent up. I also have some coffee grounds, which I'm going to put out in here. So this is just a worm buffet. We have all that stuff in there, and now we're going to add that too. And this is some dust from one vacuum. I just bought this vacuum a couple weeks ago. It has one of those HEPA filters, or HEPA filters. I don't know if you can see that. That is a lot of dust. I'm going to put this on the top. Then I'm going to put on some newspaper, wet it down, and it should be good. Now that I got everything in the bin, I'm just going to cover this back up with what was in there. And I actually have some paper that was in there previously that is still being worked on. And some more coffee filters. So this is going to go on top. You see I covered it back up. What we're going to do is add some water. And we want to make sure that this is really damp. But this is the essential thing that I got out of this to keep your worms in the bin. If you have problems escaping, you just put down one of these, wet it down, and then what they'll do is they'll come up for the humidity. But once they hit that interface where there's the cool AC, it's the top of the newspaper, they don't want to go up there. They just want the humid conditions. And that's why if you have the lid on there, it'll encourage the worms to go up and crawl on the sides of the bin. And you can see I covered it up with the dry newspaper again. And we're done. Totally fed the bin. We might have fed a little bit too much, but then again, I went over here and took a look at the worms one last time. I don't know if you can see that, but they're just pigging out on the garbage I put in there. So I figure they'll be done with that soon, and they'll want to go to the other side, so I might as well have it available for them.